so after that, I said, Kristen, if the joy is not on 10, it's out of here. So I'm not going to leave the show, but I need to change everything else around so that I can be as peaceful as possible, because I've made a commitment to myself that I'm not going to quit. And I encourage people to really do a deep dive about who is bringing you joy, what is bringing you joy, how are you fortifying your joy, because all of that led me to this moment. And clearing certain things out and getting the debris out, that's what made room. I would have missed Dre if I was still caught up on other things. I would have totally missed him.
Hey Dream Drivers, we're back with a new episode of Dreams and Drive. Today in the guest chair, we have past guest, executive producer, entrepreneur, and educator Kristen Carter. I'm so excited to have Kristen back in the guest chair. I want y'all to check out episode 156 if you want to hear her story of how she got started in media and her path to where she is today. On this episode, Kristen is going to be sharing her journey to choosing joy and how it has led to so many intentional and unexpected positive, life-changing moments along her journey. For so many of us, we're hoping, we're trying, we're looking for something different in our lives, but not realizing it's being intentional about saying yes to things that bring us joy and no to all toxic energy around us. I'm grateful that Kristen was so open about her journey and so vulnerable, and I just hope that this inspires someone out there to never give up. If you want to know a little bit more about Kristen, most recently she served as showrunner and executive producer for the PBS gospel music concert special entitled Gospel Live, presented by Henry Louis Gates Jr. In addition to entertainment, Kristen is also passionate about mentorship and community elevation. She is the founder of Trust Your Magic, which is an inspirational brand and podcast that reinforces the power of self-actualization and honoring your gifts and talents. There's so much that we dive into in today's episode, so I want y'all to buckle up, enjoy, and let's go for a ride. But before, make sure you're following us on social. We are Dreams and Drive across the board. And also, if you want to be part of our email community, go to dreamsanddrive.com/join. That's dreamsanddrive.com/join to sign up. All right, let's get into it and hear from Kristen.
Yeah, I'm really excited. Thank you so much for having me.
I know. I was listening to your episode 156 with us. That was all the way back in 2018. Can you believe it? So much has changed. We were talking about your dream driving journey then, trusting your magic, taking action, building your dreams. And you really just took us on this journey of your life story, which I don't know if you've listened to that
I
episode
have,
lately,
I have, I have.
but isn't it crazy to go back and reflect on like all that you were doing back in 2018?
I love it. I love every so often it's like that podcast, but also just reading my journals and things like that. Even yesterday, my students finished their course or their semester, and I was able to take them through some of my decks from years ago. And I was like, oh my gosh, this feels like eons ago, but it's only, 5 to 7 years ago. So yeah, it's cool. It's cool.
How would you describe the Kristen back then? If you can remember, Kristen 2018 when we were talking, how would you describe her?
Wow, I would describe myself as determined, curious, also really wondering if things are going to pan out in a couple of ways, personally and professionally. I also remember wanting to be a showrunner at that time and trying to figure out how do I go from middle of my career to senior. So yeah, I had a lot of inquiries at that time. Just so funny. 2018, I feel like there was a lot of dating fuss. But I mean, there was a lot of dating fuss until last year. So I mean, so I
Listen, it's always an ever going journey, even when you with somebody for a long time too. So
but I feel like 2018 was a very solid year. I remember that very solid year, and I was just figuring out how to make a name for myself and to make sure that people knew my work and my brand. So yeah.
And you had already accomplished so much by then, right, in your career. And if we won't go into the full story. People go back to episode 156 because Kristen really lays out everything she did to get where she is today. Um, what do you say though, if you can remember, like what was the dream that you were trying to drive? Like, let's say when we ended the conversation, right? You had already done so much, you were looking forward to so many things. Where in your head did you think you were gonna go? And then I wanna talk to you about what happened from there.
Where I felt I was gonna go is exactly where I went.
Oh, oh,
To be honest with you. To
okay.
be honest with you, yeah, I think 2018, I was just starting Blessed, Booked, and Busy, which is a workshop series through Trust Your Magic. Yeah, I mean, I really feel like a lot of the things that we talked about, I was really focused on. I was just building Trust Your Magic as a brand, and wanted to try different things. I was doing like merchandise at the time, I was trying workshops at the time, and then now I have a podcast. So I was building, I was creating the foundation. Now I'm still on the building blocks. I'm still not where I want to be. Like the plant has not fully bloomed, but we're getting there. But I think in television and production, I feel like I definitely forged my path and did exactly what I said I was going to do. I'm very proud of the last 7 years. You're talking about 2018, the last 7 years. I'm extremely proud. So yeah, I feel like I did what I came to do.
Let's go to 2020 just because I think for a lot of us it's in the creative field, the pandemic definitely was a big shift for us. How did your life change during the pandemic, and what were some of the responses or personal responses you had to kind of undertake in order to kind of move through that period?
Sure. So at the top of 2020, or at the top of the pandemic, which was March of 2020, obviously we didn't know that it was going to be a few years until we got back to normal. And I don't even think like what's normal. But at the very top, I was definitely concerned. I remember having a conversation with my roommate saying, hey, like we need to hunker down and really support one another. And then ultimately I ended up living by myself, which was a great which was a great transition. My roommate actually decided to move out during that time. And I was like, okay, I've got to hustle and make sure that I have the full rent. So that was my very last time having a roommate. And I'm so glad that that happened because it caused me and inspired me to really think outside the box. So at the very top of COVID, I was on Facebook Live. I did a series called Faith Over Finances, and I was looking to plant inspiration into people and say, hey, here are some different ways that we can make money. If you're good at baking, if you're good at sewing, if you need to babysit, well, you can't babysit because of but
I know what
you
you
get
mean.
my point that I was online spreading inspiration and spreading faith for the first 10 weeks. And people were coming. Like I was just on camera because I wanted community. It wasn't even like I was trying to figure out anything. I just was like, my natural response was to build community inside of us being isolated. So I did that. I also had a Zoom room when we have verses. So I was doing those things. And that ultimately transitioned into people calling me to write virtual specials. So even though by the time we had hit 2020, I had showrun my first project with, actually, no, 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 this is incorrect. 2020 was the first time that I show ran a project for a branded series. But at the very top of COVID, I was getting a lot of calls to write virtual specials. So even though I had transitioned out of being a head writer prior to this, I went back to that and I was writing everybody's special. So it was like a graduation special for Essence, a Father's Day special, Essence Festival of Culture when they did it digitally or virtually. I was pretty much literally, I worked on about 6 shows at a time. So 2020, I made my highest income ever because I was like, yes, 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 yes. And then I ended up funneling some of that money to family and friends because I realized so many people were unemployed and I had the opportunity to be employed. And I felt, if it's to flow through me, amazing. And so I was trying to help people at that time. So 2020 was actually a very rich experience for me. I built community. Like I said, I made a lot of money, but I also was able to give back. I did a Christmas drive. I did a holiday drive where I gifted 5 families with paying their rent. So
Wow. Girl, you was
basically
making money.
Oh, but what I did was I did an online fundraiser, and because people love because people trust me, it wasn't like, "Oh, do you have a 501(c)(3)?" I literally just said, "Hey everybody, times are tough. I want to give back to the community." So I opened things up on my socials. People donated and I said I would match whatever we raised. So we were able to give 5 families. So I was looking to be creative because Raina, I thought the world was going to end. So the reason why I was giving I was like, listen, just in case, just in case, you know what? We are just gonna do everything at a 10. I'm gonna do what
Gotta
I've
go
always
hard.
wanted to do, which I love scholarships and stuff like that. I said, we're gonna give some families, have some fun. We're gonna get on Zoom and vote for verses, and we're gonna just be with the people. So that's what 2020 was for me.
You know, Kristen, when you're talking, the thing that I'm hearing also is like you were leaning into those things that came natural to you, but also not, you were also willing to take a chance because this whole virtual world, like virtual specials, I guess they had been done before, but never to this extent, right? How did you approach entering this new territory, knowing you had the skill set to like execute, but it also being so new?
Yeah, so I remember I got a call from Essence Studios. They were doing a project called Show Me Your Walk, which was a commencement special that was hosted by Kevin Hart, and President Barack Obama was actually our speaker. So they were trying to figure out how do we do this, like setting up literal like drop cameras in people's homes, and then we are virtually directing them and telling them what to do and say, or there's a backdrop that there's like a green screen. So it was very unusual, but I was like, oh, we can do this. Like even the performances, people had bands set up at their homes. I believe we had Anthony Hamilton performing. Yeah, we had like a lot of really good, like really decent talent, really great talent. Um, but I remember getting that call to write that special. Girl, I was watching Little Fires Everywhere. I will never forget this. I was watching Little Fires Everywhere, having the time of my life, binging that show. And I got a call and it's like, hey, you got referred from 5 people. I need you to write this special, but I need this script tomorrow. And I was like, okay, great.
No
So
hesitation. You just said okay, like just
well,
like
the
that.
hesitation was really because this is the hesitation with any projects. It's like, okay, what are the logistics and what's the rate and whatnot. And also, I can do it, but we need to expedite our agreement. So if you can expedite the agreement and make it work, hey, you'll get this script tomorrow. And that's exactly what happened because we were all thinking outside the box. So typically, when you are working as an independent contractor, you get paid weekly or bi-weekly or whatever, but I'm probably letting some trade secrets go by saying you need the script tomorrow, then there's something that comes with getting the
I
script
need the
tomorrow.
script. I need the money yesterday, okay?
But everybody was willing to play ball and they got their script. So, I remember that time I didn't know what was going on, but I was very happy to serve. I was very happy that my gifts could help people. And also, just being in the unknown. I remember also listening to D Nice every day. And I know we all, him included, it's like you are seeing Club Quarantine grow, but he doesn't really know what's going on. He's just like going with the spirit, going with the energy. It was the same kind of thing for myself where opportunities were coming and I said, you know what? I'm just going to say yes because I don't know what's coming on the other side. I want to be as helpful as I can be. And so that year was really great. Now, 2021 is where there's some snags, but 2020 was fabulous.
And let's talk about that because I think a lot of us, we go through these periods of ups and downs, kind of like a roller coaster, right? You might be up one year. Like for me, 2020 was the year I got pregnant. Well, actually, it was 2019 and 2019. But, I took the test in 2020 and that completely shifted my life because it was unplanned, right? It wasn't something that we weren't really like, you weren't being safe, you know what I mean? But like we were like, wait, how did this happen? Oh, okay, that's how it happened. But at the end of the day, it was completely a shock to be pregnant during a global pandemic, not really knowing the future. So 2020 was like this low point for me actually because I was like, wait, what's going on? But then 2021 was kind of that uphill like, all right, I have a baby now. I got to figure this out. I can't stay down forever. But talk to me about you transitioning I guess into a lower point and what those snags were, a transition period coming out of
Sure.
that higher point.
Absolutely. So, yeah, so 2020, like I said, I felt like I was really focused on giving back. And then middle of 2021, I got COVID and my grandmother got COVID. We actually got it
Okay.
at the same time, completely different coasts, are not even related. Like I actually feel like I feel like my family and I know where she got COVID. I don't know where I got COVID. But because of the fact that I run and I walk and I exercise, I'm thinking if I get COVID, it'll just be, 5 days and I'll knock it out of the park. When I tell you I was crawling around my house. My fever had reached maybe 103.6, very, very high fever. I was going to bed with literal like ice packs and like frozen vegetables on me. So originally, I didn't know I was like, originally my symptoms weren't the fever. Initially, my stomach was hurting. And I was like, this is weird. My stomach never hurts. So I was
Yeah.
just trying to calm myself for maybe 2 days. And then when my fever spiked, I was like, oh, I think I have COVID. And so got tested. Obviously, I had it and I thought it was going to blow over in a couple of days. When I tell you my fever, it would, it breaking was going down to 100, like 100, which is not really breaking. So I was hot like that for maybe a week. And then I was like, I need to go to urgent care. I went to urgent care twice. My second time going to urgent care, because I had COVID, they had me sitting outside. Again, this is the summertime. So it's hot as hell in LA. I'm literally in the urgent care parking lot and I'm waiting to get some sort of physical. And so they do the test, they try to do a strep test. They do all these things, but they wanted to also they wanted to do a chest x-ray. When I stood up to do the chest x-ray, I felt like I was seeing stars. I was like, I'm getting ready to faint. And I said, I can't stand anymore. Like I need to sit down. I said, well, if you can't take this chest x-ray, you've got to go to the ER. And I said, well, just send me to the ER. So I went to the ER, my very first time staying overnight at a hospital. They actually didn't even say I needed to stay. I wanted to stay in the hospital because I was so lonely being having a fever at having a fever that high late at night and you're by yourself, you can't get anything down, like was really, really scary. And that night before I went to urgent care, I remember saying, because I feel like the ancestors are always with me, I was like, I need y'all to take this off of me. I don't know what's going on. And what feel, I feel like my grandmother heard that. And I say all that to say because both of us were in the hospital at the same time. I went home in 24 hours. Nana did not. Nana ended up transitioning in the hospital. And that rocked. I mean, I couldn't believe that I was in the hospital August 5th. I got out August 6th. Nana went in August 7th and then transitioned a few weeks later. So I was not able to get down to Georgia, even just to be in the waiting room because I was still getting over like my aunt came out to take care of me after I got out of the hospital, whether I was COVID positive or not. She came to visit me. And then my mom went down to Georgia. So it split because we both had COVID at the same time, it split our family. So my aunt came to care for me. My mom went down south to Nana and she didn't know what to do. Because I was like, Mommy, it just makes sense for you to go to be with Nana. But I did not think she was going to transition. I have a lot of thoughts about healthcare and elderly, which is a conversation for another time.
That's a whole nother podcast. episode.
Yeah, because I personally feel like the doctors did what they needed to do with me because I'm, vibrant and healthy and whatever age. I felt like I bounced back as honestly, as soon as I got like a vitamin pack. They didn't do a whole lot, but as soon as I got a vitamin pack, it was like I came back to life. Like all of a sudden I was hungry. And I was like, okay, now I can actually start to fight because prior to that, I couldn't keep anything down. Like I
Yeah.
couldn't keep anything down. I wasn't drinking. So I was just, again, crawling around my house. So I say all that to say that was the start of like what's happening? Because that situation, us losing Nana in that way where we weren't able to say goodbye, um, and it just, first of all, was really fast. Everything felt fast. Like my mom was moving. Yeah, like my mom was moving from Georgia to Jersey. I got sick, Nana got sick. Nana passes. We go down south to conduct everything. And then my uncle gets sick. So my mom's older brother uh, goes into the hospital. And at that point, I'm really like, what is going
And
on?
you're
We are
still in
typically,
LA, right? You're in different coasts at this point.
yeah. So by the time that we buried Nana, this was in August of 2021. My uncle My uncle gets blood clots in October of 2021. And when that happened, we were all really scared because we have a small family and I never thought of my immediate family as small until my Nana passed. I never was like, "Oh my gosh, we only have a few of us." It's mommy, my uncle, my uncle's wife, my aunt, who came to care for me, and then me. Like, there's not a lot of us. And so when Tio was in the hospital, we were really scared. We were like, we cannot lose him too. And yeah, then I'm not even mentioning. Then on top of that, I was actually overseeing a show. I was overseeing a show in post and felt like my team member who I was reporting to, I did not feel like I was getting the right support that I needed. Whether I was sick or not, I felt like a lot of that project fell on me.
Yeah.
And so I was trying to make a name for myself while also mourning, while also like dealing with family transition, because also our roles shifted in our family. Like once your matriarch passes or your patriarch, and I like my heart goes out to you, Raina. Like
Yeah, I was just you reminded
I
me of like and pause for 1 second, Kristen, just so people know who haven't listened to 156. Kristen and I go way back from when, I was in middle school. Our parents knew each other because we were both part of a program called A Better Chance. So we grew up attending events together. I know your mom so well. I see so much of her, even in you today. So we know each other, Kristen and I, beyond the podcast. So
Yeah. And so I feel like a lot of us lost really crucial people in our families, but losing a matriarch in that way, it strips like the roles shift. The roles shift
you have
immediately.
to be somebody that you might not know how to step into that new role, but you know that you have to, right? And it's how do you then respond to the world who's still going as if like the world hasn't changed, but you
Right,
have. And how do you
right,
show up as this changed person in this new
right.
world? What's up, dream drivers? Life's all about making bold moves and investing in your dreams, right? Whether you're taking on a new chapter, like welcoming a growing family, relocating to a fresh city, or stepping up to your next big adventure, you need a ride that's ready to go the distance with you. The Toyota Grand Highlander is designed with more space for people who are ready to tackle the grand challenges ahead. With advanced safety features, convenient tech, and a sophisticated look that reflects your style, it's more than just a car, it's the SUV that makes every journey fun and easy. With comfortable seating for up to 8, an available hands-free power liftgate, and your choice between gas or hybrid engine options, like the 362 horsepower Hybrid Max, this SUV is built for those who aren't afraid to go after their dreams, and it's got room to spare. The Grand Highlander is more than a spacious vehicle. It's your partner in embracing all life throws at you. From daily routines to unexpected adventures, it's up for every grand challenge. Learn more at toyota.com/Grand Highlander. Toyota, let's go places.
So yeah, so at that time, once my uncle recovered, and then my mom and my uncle are dealing with estate matters. I'm also included because we're not all on the same page. So then that's a whole nother thing. When people have family pass now, I say I'm praying for y'all's communication because everybody has a different grief process. Everybody has a different way of what they want to do. Sure, the estate may say one thing, but then you've got to carry that out as a family. Who is going to be the person to carry that out? And so there was a lot happening at the same time. So between, like I said, Nana passing, our family transitioning, me being on a difficult show, and also reconnecting with a former love from my 20s, and then found out some very disappointing information about that person, and having to say, oh my gosh, like this is not gonna move forward. So all of that stuff happened middle of 2021 into the top of 2022. And I was like tanked. It's just
So
like,
how did that kind of how did that affect the next years to come? And then when was this moment for you where you're like, something has to change?
yeah. So I would say I got through the show, the 2021-2022 show, and I was really proud of that project. I went on vacation with a couple of my friends, and I came home from the vacation, even though it was great, I was still exhausted. And so I carried out 2022 feeling exhausted and not really sure what to do with that feeling. I then got on another project that was even tougher than the one I was just talking about, and in which I felt like, how can I how can I share? I felt on that show that there were some biases happening. And so I was really fighting very hard for my team and myself. And ultimately the show got canceled because of COVID. But I say all of that to say that 2022, I hadn't done anything with that feeling. I knew I was exhausted. I knew I was tanked. I also felt like it's easier for me to win the lottery than it is to find a good man. Like I was just settling in beliefs that I just like, this is not working. And so the end of 2022, a very close friend of mine, I actually talk about this in my podcast.
Mhm.
But the end of 2022, one of my friends stopped me and said, have you ever considered that you might be depressed? And I was like, me?
Wait, what?
Like, what are you talking about? And she's like, Kristen, I have never heard you speak the way that you're speaking. Cause I was just like, what's the point of this? Or like I would talk to my therapist and ask him, like, are the best days behind us? Like I was really grieving my 20s, like really mourning, having a good time with my friends and feeling very carefree. It felt like, especially during COVID, most of my friends are married with children. So our friendships, unfortunately, are not on the priority list in the way that I wish that they were. And also, like I said, I had the family transitions, so I was like questioning a lot of things. And so when she said that to me, I'm really thankful that she did, because it caused me to be really introspective about where I was at that point and where I wanted to be. And so she said this around like the holidays of 2022. I'm gonna tell a funny story and then get into 2023. So like
Okay.
end of 2022, the show that I'm referring to, one of our production company executives text me during the holidays to be like, hey, do you have a couple minutes to chat? This might have been like December 28th. And I'm like, sure, I'm available between this time and this time. Girl, I thought they were going to let me go. And I was so excited. I was like, please let me go. I never get the call back. To this day, that particular person never reached out to me, nothing. So I don't know what that was. But when we got to the top of 2023 and I was still working on that show, and my co-EP of the show can attest to this, because I was like, I think they about to let me go. And she was like, they are not gonna, we are the only people that can save this show. They are not gonna let you go. And I was so upset that they did not let me go. Like my feelings were hurt. That's how
Isn't
much
it
I was
funny? We would
go.
never, you would never expect that you would want to be let go from something. But
I was like,
could you have walked away?
if I walked away, then I wouldn't get unemployment. So I wouldn't have been
Ah,
able. There's certain things just like in terms of transitions that you. So I wanted to wait it out, and I also not for nothing. I don't like quitting projects, especially when you're at the helm.
yeah.
That sets a bad precedent for your team, and it also sets people can say like our showrunner left. That sounds crazy. So I'm never going to leave a project, but I am going to express my grievances and I am going to try to reset. So I spent the rest of our time on that show trying to reset our team and the expectations and the format, all of that. But I say all that to say, I was so upset at the time of 2023. We rang in the year. So my first day back, I was like, wait,
Why
they
am I
didn't let
still
me
here?
go? Why they didn't let me go? And so after that, I said, Kristen, if the joy is not on 10, it's out of here. So I'm not going to leave this show, but I need to change everything else around me and this show so that I can be as peaceful as possible because I've made a commitment to myself that I'm not going to quit. So I need to do things and be around people who are going to elevate my energy so that I can stay focused on doing the job that I said I was going to do, supporting my team the way I said I was going to, and making sure when I'm in meetings that I'm pleasant and I'm not looking like I want to cuss somebody out.
I
And
have a
so,
question for you,
sure,
Kristen.
sure, sure.
What do you think was driving that joy? And I say that or that desire to have joy again, right? Because you know how you said your friend said, "Are you depressed?" and you didn't even think that you were. What was kind of motivating you to then say, "All right, I'm gonna make this declaration and I'm gonna stick to it."
Well, one, it was the first time I had not, it was the first time I had ever acknowledged I was unhappy. Outside of my high school years, which we talked about years ago, in high school, I feel like I had undiagnosed depression. I think there's a lot of things happening at that time. I can't pinpoint a time in my adulthood where I felt boxed in, like I wasn't able to change my circumstance. I also felt like it was my first time that I felt creatively uninspired. So me that question that my friend asked me, I was like, why would she ask me that? And then I thought about what I was saying to her, how I was feeling, that I didn't feel creatively inspired. Okay, what are the things, what do I need to do? So I was like, I need to find a new church home. So I started church hopping. I started doing more yoga and meditation. I
Question, were you before that, were you making a list of the things that you knew were important to you or you just were
no, no, at that so no, at that time at that point I was just like, oh, I need to be still. So when it became clear to me that I needed a pendulum shift, because if I'm all the way out here at say like a 1 or 2, I need to shift out over here just to hit a middle ground for myself. So I knew that because I'm mostly very joyful. Like I'm a joyful person, I'm an optimistic person. I'm the glass half full. But at that point, I was like, this is really terrible. Like, I'm not enjoying myself. And so I said, oh, well, I need to make some drastic changes because I am responsible for the experience of my life. And so even in that, that takes some time. It's not like you say, boom, okay, now you're happy. So I knew that I needed to take some months to be pretty quiet. So I wasn't creating anything at that time. I spent most of my time the first 2 quarters of 2023 amplifying my joy. So doing game nights, going skating, going out for walks, going out for hikes, hanging out with friends. Like I said, I was church hopping, so I was looking for a church that I felt like I could feel very rooted. Um, and things started to turn around. And again, this is even inside of the show. The show ends up canceling by the time we get to the middle of the year, which I was like, thank the Lord. Yeah, I was over it. And so um by that point, now we're in like the summer of 2023. I said to my agent, I need to be on a show that's a seven or better. And Raina, that tells you where I was because I'm not a seven girl. Seven is average. And I was like, I need to be at a seven or I'm quitting television because the last two shows had totally tanked me. Like I was totally exhausted.
But you
Even with
still
them.
love the industry, just didn't like the show.
No, I don't love the industry. I love what I do creatively. The industry
Mm.
that we're in is, kind of
Okay. That's
so-so.
that's another episode too. I mean, maybe if we have
So
time, we could talk about that too, but
yeah, I'm not necessarily pleased with the industry, but I'm a creative at heart, and I'm excited about the medium of television. I'm excited about the medium of film. I love the people that I work with. So there are a lot of things creatively that I love. I think it would be very similar for somebody who is in the music industry. There are a lot of artists that do not like the industry, but the industry is how you're able to reach a wide audience. So you make the best of it. And so, I enjoyed the industry for a long time. I think now that I'm a showrunner and an executive producer, and now like I'm under the hood, now it's a little different. And I will say, in 2018, I wasn't yet under the hood. I was still just on the creative side. But when you're doing business and logistics and raising money and all of that, there are other aspects that I work to make fun. I work to make enjoyable so that I keep going. But to kind of get back to what I was sharing, I told my agent that I needed a show that was going to be a seven or better. And I also suggested, I said, I also feel like I need to go back to music. I've done a lot of serious, what they call social impact programming, which is great. Your social impact programming um, talks about issues that are very important to me, but they're also very draining. Even just as a, like, outside of the business of it all, just in the storytelling, it's hard to tell George Floyd stories or, just stories from back in the day about what we've gone through and the things we're still going through. And I said, joy is going to be my rebellion, and I need some joy in my life. And so we were able to find a gospel music concert that I was like, okay, let's see how we do here. And it was an amazing experience for me.
that was the PBS Gospel Live, right? Special.
Yes. And it was, I was able to work with my pastor. So I told you that I was church hopping at the top of 2023. I had found a church home. Shout out to Believe LA. And I did not know my pastors, but I had a lunch with the first lady, which months later turned into me I was like, Pastor Adrian, I'm getting ready to start this show, and I want to know if Pastor Aaron would be interested in being the music director. He's a Grammy Award-winning musician and very, very well accomplished. We got on the phone, and as we were talking, I just felt like the Spirit just asked, just like be honest with him. And so I said, obviously, like you can't be the music director. You're trying to build our church community. What I really need is for you to call your friends and tell your friends to do this show. And that's exactly what he did. So he was our consulting producer, but even more than that, he was a big brother to my team. And I just felt like that spiritual covering was so important for me personally. But, I was able, because it was the strike, I was able to work with people I'd worked with and grown up with through the years. I had my first choice host. My production company trusted me. It was fantastic, and it felt like a true answer to my prayers. At the same time, I had also, because I had said if the joy is not on 10, it's out of here. So the two guys that I really had held the door open for several years, I finally, I had a conversation with one and I didn't need to have a conversation with the other, but I was just like, what is it that you want in this relationship, situationship? What are we doing? And when I heard what he had to say, which was not commitment, which was not marriage, I said, thank you so much for sharing with me. But also, I thanked myself for really listening. I was able to close those doors. So we're now to September of 2023. And then the show premiered, the show taped on in October to a packed house. I knew most of the people in the audience because we did a lot of our own audience coordination. We didn't hire a large company. It wasn't like like a stock audience. Everybody
Yeah.
came, wanted to support. And Raina, like when I got on stage to welcome everybody and I received a standing ovation, it was just so much love and so much support in the room and people that I'd known for years. My mom was there. It was fantastic. The Holy Spirit was in the room. So it wasn't just a concert. We were like praise and worship. So for people who are not aware of praise and worship, they got that experience that night. And I felt like it was just a true blessing. So our production executives, PBS, I mean, everybody was through the moon. And we had like a nearly flawless, and it's just so rare, Raina, like it's rare for your company to trust you, especially as a Black woman. It's just not happening the way that, so when we talk about industry, the thing that I'm challenged by most is you hit the title and you can't even flex your muscles the way that you really have them. You've been working out in the gym all this time, you get the chance, and then everybody is all over you. And you can't even, you feel, I have felt, I shouldn't say everybody, I have
Hmm.
felt creatively stifled in certain regards. And that's painful. If you're someone who really loves your work, loves community, loves your team, I do take that stuff personally. I know some showrunners who don't care in that way, but my personality, I put my heart into everything that I do. And so to experience what I did on Gospel Live, where I did receive the trust and the love and the support, and I was able to oversee 150 people. And the format that I pitched in the very beginning is what made air. Like those things almost never happen. It was fantastic.
I want to ask you what this could be like a 5 hour conversation, but how did you then leverage that momentum that you felt to continue chasing that joy, right? Because for people listening in, we might have this moment, this high moment, and we feel like we can't ever live up to it, right? What would you say to that person listening in who's not sure what to do next once you get this satisfaction finally after, chasing it for so long?
I think the satisfaction is really within and it's not anything external. So let's say that Gospel Live was a bit different. Do I think my do I think I would have been impacted by that? Sure. But I feel like the overall experience, I walked into that show, I feel like refreshed and renewed because I had made some decisions that were really, really crucial. That whole thing about like keeping the stragglers around and finally saying goodbye to them was huge. Those two guys had hung around.
And that energy, I'm guessing, was you might not know it, but the energy that
Yeah,
they were probably holding in your life or taking up in your life, once they're gone, you have so much more now. I'm trying to
because
find the words here. You know what I mean, though, right?
yeah, because it was 2023. There was one person that I met in 2009 who I had been like, hold the door. You don't even realize, like, we're not even in the same state. You holding the door open for, and then another one who was in LA was 2016. So that's how long I had held those two. So, and what I mean by that is like, no, we weren't dating, but you hope that he comes around. You hope that he realizes what you have, whatever the story is. And I feel like September, like I really got it. Like I really, really got it. And I was able to close those chapters. And that was a huge shift for me. Um, I want to answer your question and then like kind of share what happened after the show because to also be able to employ my friends at that time. and people who had looked out for me through the years. That was huge. Nobody was working. Like now, like post strike,
Yeah.
now we're all affected. But at that time, we were one of very few shows that was up and running. That was such an amazing blessing. And our team was able to go to church together. Folks decided because they loved Pastor Aaron so much, who kept telling us, don't call him Pastor, call him Aaron. But he was like, everyone said, oh, well, we want to try it. Let's all go to Believe LA. So we all fellowship together and, celebrated and cried together. And I knew, oh, this show is about to be like God is about to take the roof off this thing.
Yeah.
We were just in alignment. So for anybody who is looking, searching, I would say like trust the timing of your life, but also do things that make you excited. Be with people that make you excited. If the person is, as they call, like mid, like they're out of here. If folks are not sure about you, they're out of here. If you're not sure about them, they're out of here. It's like all about trust and love. And I felt like I leaned into that so strongly that is what created that night. Like I genuinely feel that all of that energy of me being in celebration and support of other people and support of me elevating myself, I think is what created that experience for Gospel Live, to be honest with you. So by the time we delivered the show the same day of my birthday party. And that particular year, we must have
Which birthday party was this? I see on Instagram. You have fabulous birthday parties, by the
I have
way.
birthday parties every year. This is so now that I'm in my 40s, I'll probably be going on vacations now, but I have done birthday parties from the time I turned 21 until 40. I have done a birthday party every year. And even in COVID, we had a virtual virtual party, so it still counts. But walking into my birthday party, it was just we chose a great date. Shout out to my DJ Brian Henry, who was just like, I'm gonna plan your party. I don't want you planning anything. And I'm so glad that he did that because I was able to let my hair down. But like my married friends, my friends with children, mentors, like it was packed in a way. And it wasn't just about the numbers, it was the fact that everybody was dancing until the lights came up. Like folks were not leaving. And I said, we're partying like we're in our 20s. Like folks said they got a babysitter, and it was just lovely to see like couples dance. I don't see my married friends out, which will be different when I get married, but I don't see my married friends out a whole lot. And so it was just like so beautiful. And around that time, a few days before my party, one of my friends who had just recently gotten married was like, "Hey, I just want to let you know before I met my husband, I had a dating coach." And I was like, "Really?" I said, "Girl, but you've always been in very serious relationships." She said, "But yeah, but those people weren't the one." And I was in a different boat where like I wasn't reaching commitment. And so I told her if anyone else told me they had a dating coach, I would have laughed them out of my house. Seriously. But because it was her and because I've known her for a long time, she's my first friend here in LA. I was like, okay, I let me see if this is gonna work for me. So I did some research the next day and I found somebody that I was like, oh, she's cute. Like she got a black husband. I'm with it. So so we had a consultation and I did her 8-week dating course and it was phenomenal.
What was the biggest takeaway from it for you about yourself?
So I'll say two things. One is that I think a lot of us put together these lists, these non-negotiables, but then don't stick to it. And what I mean by that is if you want someone who's family oriented, but they go out with you and like leave their mom in the lurch, like let's say their mom is sick or something like that, he's out of here because he's not truly family oriented. He doesn't have the heart of somebody that's family oriented. Or if you want somebody who is, financially responsible, but they're asking you to borrow money very early, then that person is out, whatever it is. So in this particular time frame, it was like really pay attention to who is fitting your non-negotiables and if you're still keeping them in. So when I think about the two guys, let's put them to the test. the two guys that I was referring to, if I had put them up towards my non-negotiables, which is like emotionally grounded, resilient, spiritually aligned, those things were not aligned. I was just letting it go because I'm like, oh, well, he has 5 out of the 6.
He'll
No, but
change, you know.
yeah, if he doesn't have 6 out of the 6, he's gone. But I'll say another thing. There are two things that like I want listeners to get because I now talk to my friends about this all the time, is that a lot of times we meet people that may not look the part, and we don't we we don't truly experience that person because he's not like tall, dark, and handsome. My boyfriend happens to be all those things, so I appreciate that I got what I wanted. But but sometimes it's packaged differently, and that does not mean that that person doesn't have the heart of what you're looking for. So, for example, we excuse the tall, dark, and handsome ones that really ain't about nothing because they fine. But if this other person maybe is a few pounds heavier than you want or a few inches shorter than you want, you ready to kick him to the curb, and you're not really getting to the opportunity of like, what is this man's heart? And so I feel like me being in that course really had me look at like, okay, what am I saying that I want versus what am I accepting because of what it looks like? Why am
Mm.
I excusing certain things? And that's again, that's a whole nother because there's like major epiphanies that I had, but really understanding that your preferences are not your non-negotiables. So like you can't, we're getting rid of really good men because of preferences, not because of the non-negotiables, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think that could even like apply to just beyond love life, right? Like there's so many opportunities we may not take because we think that, oh, it's not at the dream, the dream employer that you want. It was funny because I was listening to a another past interview I did, and she told me she's a media personality, and she told me her first job was at the unsexiest place ever. It was like a place like nobody had ever heard of, but they were like a small startup in New York City doing digital media. But it allowed her the opportunity to wear so many hats and so many roles that she would have never had gotten if she had started her first job at like a big top five media in New York City. So think about this like parable in all areas of your life, right? Like, what are your non-negotiables versus your preferences? And then how can you use that to truly transform your life? Because here, I guess what happened because of this, right? You met the love of your life, right?
Yeah, so at this is so now we're at the end of 2023. Thanks for following this timeline. So the dating course, like I said, was fantastic. I had a lot of fun. I went on a lot of first dates and I was paying attention in a different way. So, if a man is saying, like, let's say, I'm like, oh, well, ideally, what do you want? What are you looking for? And that guy says anything other than relationship, commitment, family, and that's for himself. That's not for me. Like, I
Hmm.
don't know this man, but if he doesn't have that vision for himself, he's out. And so for me, I really use it as like, okay, in this exercise of these 8 weeks, let me just apply everything. Shout out to Allison Wellington. I'm gonna apply everything that Allison is telling me. So I had different types of conversations with men because I was also fasting. At the top of 2024, I did a 21 day prayer and fasting season with my church. It was my first time doing it. So I was on first dates, eating dry salad and water, which I was fine with. And so it gave me a natural end to talk about faith and family and really get to the core of everything. Simultaneously, I was planning a tour for Gospel Live because I wanted to amplify our show and make sure that people were getting to PBS Friday night at 9. I was like, okay, how can I support? And I felt like at night I just kept being woken up like you got to take this on the road. So myself and my publicist, Maisha Joel, we pitched a tour, and I just was like, well, let's see if they say yes. and they did. And so I was able to use PBS's logo and our parent production company's logo, and then funded this tour. So I say all that to say again, you see how this joy keeps rolling because I'm like, oh, I can create, and I'm spending my own money in the midst of post strike. So I took a huge risk and a huge leap of faith, and we went on this tour. So, as I'm doing the tour, someone that I have been in touch with over the last maybe year or so, there's like, kind of adjacent in the industry. He's like, "Oh, hey, I see that you're gonna be in my city. I would love to just meet you." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." Like I'm not thinking anything of it, but the only day we can meet is Valentine's Day. And so he was like, "Are you cool with that?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." So we meet like at 12. Long story short, we ended up talking for hours. We were at that restaurant for 4 hours, and I didn't look at my phone not once. And when our waitress came to us to basically kick us out and say, like, hey, we have reservations for the night. And we're like, what? It's like, oh, wait, we've been here for all this time. And I was like, oh, this is really effortless. Like I think he's funny. Like it kind of was like it didn't like dawn on me until because
And you
I'm
didn't have any expectation, like you went
I
into
had
it.
no expectation. I was telling him about my dating coach. I was telling him about the tour. I was just shooting but I was being myself. And so I feel like that actually is kind of what opened the door because I was not being anything different. I just was being myself. And so, yeah, that's pretty much like long story. We've been together ever since. So I mean, long story short, I told I and I was done with the by the time I went on tour, I was done with the course. But I text Allison and I said, my intuition shows if my intuition serves me right, this man is about to come in like a tidal wave. And that's exactly what he did. And now we're here.
And the whole time, listeners, if this is not the clip I used to promote this episode, Kristen's smiling the whole time, okay? I could see all her teeth when she was telling me this story. She is so happy. You can just see it through her face. Kristen, like, how do you think now being in this new area of your life where you had this goal, like, we all want partnership, right? Nobody wants to walk this road alone forever. I mean, some people might, but a lot of people don't. How do you think finally, and I'm gonna say checking this box, this dream box for you off, how do you think it's influenced you personally and professionally?
Yeah, so I'll start off with personally, I never thought it was possible.
Mm.
Gen Genuinely. When people say when you know, I thought that that was a bunch of BS. I was like, child, please. Like, I did not think it was true until I met him.
For you or at all?
For me,
Mm.
like for me. But when people said when you know, I was like, well, what's that feeling? Like, I was like, well, I want that. How do I conjure up? You can't, but I think that me taking the time to understand like what am I seeking in terms of the heart of a man? Me doing the dating coaching actually had nothing to do with the man. It had everything to do with me being the best version of myself so that I can recognize the heart of a man and I'm not blinded by any other things. So I feel like what it has given me personally is like, oh, I'm not on this journey by myself. I have a teammate. I have somebody that I can go to. We can talk through things. We are very involved with each other's families. And that, again, was not something that was even, it didn't take a long time. I always thought, oh, again, your relationship has to build. And oh, I understand why people have been together for XYZ amount of decades and still not married. And everyone doesn't have to be married, so I'm not saying that. But I was like, oh yeah, when you know. Like I knew pretty quickly. Professionally, I will say that being in relationship um and being married minded, I would say it's interesting. I feel like um he gives me a lot of peace and a lot of support as it comes to my next phase. I'm in a new phase of my career. I just got a new agent on the television side. I am now a site director for an academic program for my alma mater. So now I'm fully in the education space. So I'm in a different season of my life. I'm also really focused on growing Trust Your Magic. So he's very involved in that planning. So, like my social media strategy and all the stuff that we were talking about offline, he's the one that's like, babe, people have to hear this. Like, you can't keep releasing episodes and nobody knows this podcast exists, or only, 100 or 200 people know. We got to get people to this podcast. And so, there's certain things, even for me personally, where I've been shy or doubtful because it's a new space for me. I don't want it to feel inauthentic. Like there's some stuff on socials that I'd be like, no, I don't want to watch your stuff. But if it's something that's organic to you, like I'm really excited about the conversations. It's not even about numbers and analytics, but it's like I feel like these conversations that we're having on this podcast can really support people's growth and my growth. I want you to just check it out and see if you like it. Coming from that space is where I'm always going to come, but I feel like he supports and advocates for me to continue to hit send, to figure it out, to do all of the things. So I am thrilled. 10 out of 10 would recommend.
And you know what, too? It reminds me of this whole dream driving analogy or metaphor of like, we all want someone in our passenger seat eventually, right? Like, nobody wants to drive this dream alone. And I think you sharing how first you had to work on yourself, right? You had to make sure you aligned your rear view mirror correctly. You had everything set up so that when you were able to now have this person in your passenger seat, it felt right and the ride felt right, right? And you guys have this shared destination or the shared end goal. So thank you so much for sharing that part of your story, Kristen.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And I feel it's interesting, even in that analogy, which I think is amazing. The thing that I love most about my relationship is that we're able to take turns in the driver's seat, and
Ooh.
I can trust that this man is going to drive in a direction I want to go and in a direction that is going to be fulfilling to me and to him. And I've never felt that before. And I encourage people to really do a deep dive about who is bringing you joy. What is bringing you joy? How are you fortifying your joy? Because all of that led me to this moment. Like, I really, really hope that anybody listening can connect the dots and can see how, in clearing certain things out and getting the debris out, that's what made room. I would have missed Dre if I was still caught up on other things. I would have totally missed him.
You would have been like Valentine's Day, boy, bye. I got, what are you trying to do?
Yeah, it would. I mean, it would have been a couple of things that I was like caught up on that, like when I sat down and really looked into his eyes and listened to him, I was like, oh, this is the man I want to get to know. And so yeah, it's been amazing. I'm excited for this next phase. I feel like I'm also in the seat, like I'm on the roller coaster, like, hey, I'm not actually sure. Am I going to I guess I'm going to do education and production, which is what I've always wanted to do, to be honest with you. If you looked at any of my action plans through my life, I've always wanted to be equal parts education and entertainment. I thought it was going to happen later in my life. And I'm like, oh, it's happening right now. Okay. Like, so I'm buckled in, and I'm really, really excited for the rest of the year.
So quickly, if you want to be a dream driver, Kristen, you have to have your keys to success, right? And looking back at your journey to joy, all the things that you've learned, what do you think are three things that every dream driver needs in their joy toolkit before hitting the road?
Empathy. And the reason I'll say empathy is this notion of giving grace to yourself, forgiving yourself for maybe not being joyful before or not preparing yourself in the way you would have wanted. So, empathy for yourself and then empathy for other people, because sometimes people are not going to come on the journey with you, and that's okay. So, I would say empathy. I would say determination, because not everybody is going to see the road the way that you do. And so being a dream driver you are responsible for paving that way for yourself, and that takes determination. And then lastly, I would say faith. Man, I'd be nothing without faith because it's trusting that the timing of your life, you're right where you need to be. Trusting that, God has never left me before, so he's not going to leave me now. So I have what it takes. Again, even if I drive down the road, I'm not sure necessarily where exactly I'm going, but I know I'm going in the right direction and I trust I'm going in the right direction. So I would say those three tools.
Empathy, determination, and faith. And I'm gonna add one just from what I've heard from your stories, like that courage too, right? Like you have to have the courage to say, wow, like this is not, I don't like what I feel and I want to change it. And having the courage to then execute on that personal desire for yourself is something that I think is so important. So many of us have these desires and we know we can do it, but we lack the courage to just say, all right, I'm gonna let go and let God, right?
Yeah, it's funny because the word for this year is surrender. And I say that because 2025 looks very different than 2024, and 2024 looks very different from 2023. So every year is like distinctly its own year. And while I might not be sure necessarily where things are opening up, because again, we are post-strike, which means my industry is in transition right now. I'm in a great season where I just finished a wonderful semester just yesterday, the Hofstra LA semester, and I'm like, wow, I didn't feel like it was a job at all. At all. I had a blast. So I'm looking at that and I'm just like, okay, let me just surrender. Lord, I just want to be peaceful and bring people to you and build community and all of that. So let's just see where this is going.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's see where it's going. I love that. Like, even if we think of like the visual to that, right? Like, as you walk off, as the screen fades to black, right? It's like a little car driving down a road and you don't know where it's going, but you know it's going somewhere. Before we get off, Kristen, please tell our dream drivers where they can find you online, where they can connect with you, where they can listen and watch your own podcast. Let us know all those details.
Absolutely. Well, you can find me on Instagram at Kristen V. Carter. So KRISTEN VCARTER. Actually, you can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, same name. And then also you can drop by at Trust Your Magic. So at TRUSTYOURMAGIC. You can find me on all the platforms as well, and that will take you to the podcast. So I hope you check it out and enjoy it.
And if you guys are super compelled, if this is your first time hearing from Kristen, go back and listen to episode 156 because you'll be even more inspired to just hear how she got to where she is today and some more details on her life and all that good stuff. So thank you, Kristen, so much for joining us today. This has been such a pleasure, and you fill me up in ways as well. So just sending a virtual hug to you from across from the East Coast to the West Coast. And thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I'm glad I was able to tell you first about some of these things. I wanted to make sure that our conversation was special. So I really hope that it resonates with your listeners. And I'm so proud of you, Raina, for just continuing to do this.
Thank you.
So easy feat to continue to do this for years. And the fact that we're talking about 156, you said, in
Yeah.
2018, and now we're in
It's
2025.
gonna
Like,
this gonna probably be like 424. If you yep, 424.
incredible that you've continued and you stayed focused even in the midst of transition for yourself and all of that. So I commend you, I celebrate you, and I really appreciate you inviting me. This has been really, really fun.
Thank you so much. All right, so that's a wrap for today's episode with Kristen. I hope that you enjoyed hearing her dream driving journey and her keys to success. If you enjoyed this episode, please stop what you're doing and please subscribe. Subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. Tell a friend about this episode. Make sure you're sharing on social. You can find us across the board at Dreams and Drive on all the social media channels. And remember, if you want to be part of our email community, just go to dreamsanddrive.com/join. That's dreamsanddrive.com/join to sign up. As always, guys, keep dreaming, keep driving, and we'll chat again in the next episode.